Welcome to Module 1, Relationship Foundations. First of all, in your workbook, just write down what the foundations of your relationship were. Now here's some questions to consider. What were the foundations when you first got together? How did you meet? What drew you together? When you decided that you wanted to be partners? When did each of you decide? What were the main qualities you saw in the relationship? What were the main qualities you saw in your partner? Now write these down in your workbook, take some time, and once you're finished, just share this with your partner. Right, pause the video now. How did you go? Next, in your workbook, write down what you believe the purpose of a relationship is. Again, pause the video and complete the exercise. Great, how are you going? What I'd like you to do now is write down what you consider as the foundation of a good relationship. Put your current relationship aside and just think about your ideal relationship, the 3 to 5 words that you consider core to a good relationship or a great relationship. So pause the video now. Okay, write down now what you believe is needed for a good or great relationship. Write down 15 to 25 words or more. Now, because I'm asking other people to do this, I set myself the task to do it myself. So in 10 minutes, I'd written down 50 words. So take some time here because this is like getting clear on what you want your relationship to look like, what you'd like to bring into your relationship to have a great relationship. So pause the video now and complete this exercise. How did you go? How many did you get? Well, here are some words that I wrote down and also clients have contributed when they've done the same exercise. See which ones you got. See which ones resonate with you. See which ones you missed. Now, this list isn't complete. You can certainly add more. Just have a quick look at the list. Pause the video for a moment just to review these words. Now, what I'd like you to do is just put everything down, sit back, get relaxed, take a couple of deep breaths, because I will just get you to close your eyes and get you to imagine what it's like to have a relationship like this as I read these words out. So put everything down, sit back, take a couple of deep breaths just to relax. Close your eyes. And just imagine what it's like to have a relationship where there's honesty, commitment, love, understanding, where you feel comfortable speaking up, where there's empathy, there's fun, there's sex, there's passion. You're working together as a team. You're sharing life and sharing yourself. Where there's support, where there's compassion, equality, where there's appreciation, affection, there's hugs, there's us time, there's me time, there's happiness, where you listen to each other, where there's laughter, authenticity, joy, trust, self-expression, where you feel you matter, where there's acceptance, where there's change and growth, there's desire, there's great communication, there's variety, there's surprises, the nice ones, there's respect, safety, security, where you feel valued, there's openness, there's intimacy, there's caring, comfort, loyalty, you have common goals that you're working towards, there's lust, you're faithful, there's reliability, there's awareness, there's consideration, there's devotion, there's sensitivity, there's fairness, freedom, you have common values, there's kindness, thoughtfulness, compatibility, creativity, there's friendship, there's patience, there's responsibility, there's togetherness, there's a real strength together and in your relationship. There's perseverance, there are common interests, there are separate interests. There's a sense of belonging, there's family, there's order, there's excitement, where you're freely talking. There's kisses, cuddles, there's peace and harmony. There are compliments. There's adventure, there's stimulation, there's enjoyment, there's giving and receiving. There's presence when you're together. There's truth, integrity, humor, closeness, attraction, where you're expressing your needs and your needs are being met, where you have your lover. You have the knowledge, the tools, and the skills to make this work. You have the space. There's a real connection. There's actions, there's direction, there's time, there's touch, there's tenderness. And just imagine having all this consistently. Just imagine having this together. And just imagine having the relationship not only with your partner, but just imagine having this as a relationship with yourself. Just feel what that feels. And just paint that into your future. You've all experienced all of these words. You just haven't experienced them consistently. So just paint into your future, experiencing that relationship with your partner and yourself consistently, more and more consistently as you move forward into your future. But in order to move into the future, you need to have something that you're working towards. And this just brings it all together. And now come back to this moment, bringing that feeling of what it's like to have all of this in your future. Bring that back right now, because this is the starting point to achieving that. Open your eyes, and you may want to share that experience for you with your partner. Now, some people are sad because they don't have that now. Some people are excited. Some people, it brings up a lot of emotion. So just share that with your partner now. Just pause the video and just share what it's like, and it will be like, to have that relationship together. Okay. Now, I view a relationship like a house. So we'll keep it really, really simple. So a house has foundations. It has a floor, it has walls, and a ceiling and roof. Here are the 3 words that describe the foundation. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and just have a crack at those 3 words. So pause the video now. How did you go? Well, the first 2 that most people get are respect and trust. Some people say love. We need love, respect, and trust. Well, my experience was that love is not enough in a relationship. When I was married, my wife and I loved each other dearly. We loved our children. But we didn't have the skills and the knowledge and the support to make it work. So the hard lesson I learned when I lost my marriage was that love is not enough in a relationship. We need more. So the first word is a 4-letter word that starts with L and ends in E, but is not love. So pause the video and write down some words. I trust that you're following instructions and pausing the video and completing the exercises. Because if you're not, then I would say, well, where in life do you give up? Where do you want the instant answers? Where do you want to be told what to do? Relationships are about giving it a go. It's not about getting it right. The reason I'm asking questions and giving you exercises to do is so that you're more engaged, because you never learn everything by getting it right. Sometimes when you get it wrong, it'll sink in. You'll remember it even better. So please follow the instructions, do the exercises. This isn't a race. This is a marathon. This is about doing it properly. I will pause as I go through this as things come up with clients, just so that they can have the full experience of the session. So I'm encouraging you to have the full experience of the session inside these courses. So back to the L. The word is like. Did you get like? Think about it. Why would you be in a relationship if you didn't like, respect, and trust the person? Think about all your good relationships. I guarantee that you will like, respect, and trust the people in your best relationships. Here are the letters for the other parts of the house. So again, pause the video and have a crack at what the words are for these parts of the relationship foundations. Well done. Now, a lot of people say that we've got communication issues. Was that one of the things that you wrote down? We want to communicate better. Well, communication is one of the walls, one of the pillars. Because what you've actually got to do is connect before you can communicate. If you've got a walkie-talkie and you're on different frequencies, are you going to be able to communicate? If you've got a mobile or cell phone and you're in an area where there's poor coverage, are you going to be able to communicate? So first of all, we've got to connect before we communicate. So people don't have communication problems, they have a connection problem. And connection gets eroded when there's damage to trust and respect. Next is commitment. All relationships need commitment. The last two might have been a bit tricky, a bit sneaky of me. You've got to have interests that are the same, and you've got to have interests that are separate. So with all the words that we covered in the previous slide, we can decorate our house, but here are the foundations that will form a great relationship. Now, I said love is not enough, so where does love fit in? Well, just like a house is built on land, I believe all relationships are actually built on love. When children come into this world, they assume love. Love is always there. It's like oxygen. It's always there. But what happens is we get crap that covers us up. We get layers put on the onion that covers up the love that already exists. So I believe in having really, really clear definitions to work with. That's why I call it a relationship roadmap. So let's look at respect. Respect, in my world of relationships, is being able to sit and zip it. I will repeat this many times, but the number one skill in a relationship is learning to listen with your heart to your partner. That means being able to sit and zip it, which is listening without any judgment, without any criticism, without any diagnosis, without having your opinion that you want to share with them. Too many people in conversations will be interrupting, waiting for the other person to finish to give them their opinion, tell them what's right, what they should be doing or shouldn't be doing. So listening from your heart, or listening with your heart, is being able to sit and zip it, put yourself aside, put aside any judgments, criticism, diagnosis, and opinion, and really listen to what the person is saying. It is the number one skill that's missing in all relationships. We want to listen to understand the other person and be able to accept their viewpoint. We don't necessarily have to agree with it, but at least we need to understand and be able to accept it. Now, in a relationship, when you have two people that are able to sit and zip it and listen without judgment, criticism, diagnosis, or having their opinion and other things, who can accept the other person's viewpoint and understand, you then have a basis to discuss the differences and be able to move forward. Next is trust. This is about creating an environment that won't make anybody wrong, where there's no punishment. This is where we create a safe environment where it's accepting. We just totally accept the person for who they are, warts and all, no matter what they've done. You can't change what's been done in the past. It's about honoring each other. It's where anything and everything can be expressed. Now, one of the common things I see with working with lots of couples is people don't feel comfortable to express everything and anything. In fact, it goes so far as they will hide the truth. They'll give half stories. They'll even lie directly to the person that they love the most. The reason they do that is because they're not feeling safe. I've had a number of clients come in where, as a child, they were beaten or they were punished for telling the truth. So they learned a strategy of telling lies and telling stories because it was safer than telling the truth. And then in a relationship, they have a partner who punishes them for lying or telling stories. So to me, that person's really screwed, because they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. In their world, they got punished for telling the truth, Now, the person that's supposed to love them is now punishing them for telling lies and making up stories. So if you're in a relationship where someone is lying, if someone is making up stories, is hiding the truth, simply look at that person and ask them do they feel safe to tell the truth? And if they don't, it's about creating a safe environment. And we have strategies for do that. We'll come on to that shortly. Next is connection. Now, as I've said earlier, you have to connect before you can communicate. There are 5 levels of connection. What I'd like you to do is pause the video and have a crack at the 5 levels of connection. How did you go? Well, here's in my world what I believe the 5 levels of connection are. First of all, there is a spiritual connection, then intellectual, then emotional, physical, and sexual. Now, I distinguish physical and sexual because I believe that the sexual connection should remain inside the relationship. Even though there may be relationships out there that are open, personally, I believe it gets energetically messy when you have a sexual connection outside the relationship. And again, think about the best relationships that you have. Outside the relationship, without the sexual connection, if you look at who are your strongest friends, who you have the strongest relationship, there'll be like, there'll be trust, there'll be respect. You may even have strong spiritual, intellectual, emotional, and physical connections, meaning that you might have bro hugs, you might feel comfortable hugging a person. Those relationships will be strongest because of the connections. Now, here's the thing. Inside an intimate or personal relationship, sexual and spiritual are connected. In the Indian culture, or if you do yoga or some of the Eastern philosophies, you have what we call chakras. There's 7 major chakra centers in the body. I've experienced this myself where when making love, it becomes a spiritual experience when we are open, when we're present, when we're in the moment. It becomes timeless. In my marriage, one of the things that my wife continually said to me was, open your heart. I was shut down. I was closed off. So whenever we would hug or make love, I would be closed down and shut off. For me, it was just a physical act. And my wife kept saying, open your heart. When we open our energy centers, when we're with our partner and open our energy centers, it's like electricity or water. When there's no blockages, the energy flows easily. There's things like Tantra, not tantric sex, but Tantra is all about that spiritual connection, about connecting to our energy bodies, being open and free and clearing those as well. Now, what happens is that whenever we have arguments, whenever there is negativity, what we're doing is bringing out the knives. Now, this is actually my knife. That's a picture of one of my knives, and I have brought it out in sessions. For example, bringing out the knives is like severing connections. Think of connections like a rope. If you have an argument, that's like bringing out a knife and starting to cut the rope of your connection. For some people, the big knives are having an affair. Could be name calling. There'll be areas in your relationship which you are sensitive to. So just identify what areas you're sensitive to. Next, we have the little knives. Now, the little knives, I'll say, are like the digs. The little dig, the little sarcasm, those little things you do, one of you may do or you might do to each other. So the little digs are like death by 1,000 cuts. It's like hurts by 1,000 cuts. What I'd like you to do now is just pause the video and in your workbook, write down what are your big knives. What are the things that hurt you the most? What are the things that you use to hurt your partner the most? What are the little knives? What are the little things that hurt you? What are the little things that you do to take shots at others? So just pause the video now and just write these down. Now, in my marriage, one of the biggest challenges that I had was when my parents used to come visiting. And one of the things that really used to upset my wife was when I would be defending them rather than supporting her. Not sure if that's a big or a little knife, but it certainly caused a lot of friction. I felt like I was the meat in the sandwich. Some of the little knives I used to have were like the little digs I would take at her, little sarcastic remarks. Probably the big knife was really just me withdrawing, just shutting down, giving the silent treatment. That probably was my biggest knife. So anyway, what were yours? Just be aware and be honest and be open about it, because we all know what we do. So this isn't about being perfect. This is just about getting real with where we are at the moment. Right, so what I ask people to do, you're adults. If this is happening in your life, I ask that you please put away the knives. Because if you bring the knives out, start doing the big knife or the little knife, you might as well get a physical knife and actually stab the other person. They'll probably heal quicker from a cut than they will from the words or the anger. So please be adults and put away your knives. The stronger your connections, the stronger your relationship. The stronger your connections, the stronger your relationship. The stronger you connect together on all of these levels, the stronger your relationship, and it'll become unbreakable. The stronger you connect on all of these levels yourself, the stronger your relationship will be when you also connect together this way. And you can always be working on strengthening all of your connections. Next, we have communication. Now, I've got a module later on which goes into how we communicate authentically. So at this moment, we'll just come into viewing communication this way. Only 7% of our communications are the words we speak. 38% is the voice and the tone. 55% is body language. So when anyone says they're not communicating, well, or they're a bad communicator, well, I'd say no, they're communicating a lot. It doesn't have to be the words they say. Already 55% is their body language. I'm willing to bet you can just about read the mood of your partner or your children if you have them simply by looking at them. Next, commitment. So again, if you like, pause the video and just jot down, how committed are you really? Give it a score out of 10. Please be honest with yourself. I've had some clients say, well, I'm only 5 out of 10 committed. That's because they're just about out of the relationship. Just be honest. Pause the video and just write down, how committed are you really? Now that might have been a little bit of a trick question. In order to commit, you've got to know what you're committing for. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on this. We'll go into a bit more depth on this later. But for now, consider these 4 commitments. And you may want to score these out of 10. Self. How committed are you to yourself? How committed are you to your partner? How committed are you to the relationship? And how committed are you to change and growth? So again, pause the video, score those honestly out of 10. Now, at this point, we're still getting clear on where you are. If, for example, your partner looks over at your scores and is really disappointed, well, at the moment, we just want to get real where things are right at. We want to just make sure everything is out on the table, because then we've got the opportunity to work with it. Some people may have a really low score and their partner's going to be really disappointed and upset. That's simply because you haven't expressed exactly how bad things are for you. There's no rights or wrong, it just is what it is. So we want to get real and present during this section of the course. Next is same interests. In all relationships, we need to enjoy doing things together. What was it that you enjoyed doing when you first got together? Are you still doing some of those things? Have some of the things slipped by as time's gone by, or Life's got busy, you've had children and work. So pause the video for a moment and make a list of the things that you enjoy doing together. How did you go? What I'd like you to do, not now, but after you finish the course or in your own time, I'd like you to find new activities to do together. Part of that is for each of you to write down 101 goals for yourself. You can include ones you want to do together in there, but write down 101 goals for yourself. And I'll give you the first one. The first one is write down 102 goals. The reason for that is I used to say write down 101, but then someone called me on it and said, well, that's cheating. So I said, make your first goal, write down 102, and then when you get to 102, you can tick it off. You can overachieve by doing 103. What will happen is, as you go through it, you'll run into blocks, or you'll run out of things to think of to do. Keep pushing through that block, because by the time you get to 101 goals, or 102, or 103, you'll then start seeing so many opportunities, so many things that you want to do. Part of this exercise, it's like clearing the ground. We've had a busy life come in. There are things that you've always wanted to do that you've forgotten about, hidden, put it on the shelf. Well, this will help bring all those up. It'll also give both of you the opportunity to cheat, to look at each other's list and go, oh, I'd like to do that. And then all of a sudden, you've got something that you both would like to have a go at. So this isn't an exercise to do right now, but please complete this exercise as part of finding out more things you enjoy doing together. Next, we have separate interests. Now, I've come across couples where one person hasn't had any separate interests. So if you don't have any separate interests, then I would encourage you to find some separate interests, because in your separate interests, there will be some more passion that brings more richness into your relationship. At this point, I'd like you to pause the video and identify the areas that need to be worked on in your relationship. Please be guided by the definitions that I've given. For example, respect is being able to sit and zip it. Trust is creating a safe environment where everyone can share anything and everything. Connection has the 5 levels of connection. Communication is pretty much self-explanatory. Commitment is your overall commitment, but also specifically the commitment to yourself, to your partner, to the relationship, and to changing and growing. So pause the video and just identify the areas that need working on. In my experience, most people like each other and most people have separate interests. I have had cases where some people got really good common interests that they enjoy doing together, but the separate interests are weak. But most people bookend it with they like each other and their separate interests. Generally, everybody needs to work in all the other areas. Just remember, the stronger your connections, the stronger your relationship. We are all born of connection. We're all born of our mothers. We grow inside the womb. Our first point of disconnection is when we have the umbilical cord cut. We come into this world connected. I believe that we are designed to be connected. Just some final thoughts in terms of the foundations. Can you see now that your relationship had some cracks in the foundations? Most people haven't been educated about relationships. They don't have a structure to work with, and this is why I believe in having simple models and structures to work in. So can you see now that there are some cracks in the relationship? I've had people whose relationships were founded on affairs. Well, the problem with that one is that someone in the relationship is going to be worried about them leaving, the other partner leaving for another affair. They might even be worried themselves that they're going to leave and have another affair. So sometimes relationships don't have those strong foundations. Things haven't been tidied up and people are worried about what's going to happen, or there might be just baggage that's been brought in that hasn't been dealt with. All right, so the stronger your connections, the stronger your relationship, and you can always be working on strengthening all of your connections. Underneath it all, there is love. We've just got to get to it again for some people. In my relationship when we got married, even though we had love, we didn't have a really, really strong foundation. I didn't feel safe to really share what was going inside my world with my wife. I really wasn't listening to her. Remember, number one skill is to learn to listen to your partner. My wife was doing everything that she could to point out what was needed in a relationship, but I just wasn't listening. I was in my late 20s and I had the male attitude that there's nothing wrong with me. I was just following in my father's footsteps, if you like. I grew up on a farm back in New Zealand, and Dad was a hard worker. He was always there, and Mum and Dad had this sort of attitude, yeah, just sleep on it, we'll be all right. They just stuck together. I was just operating out of that. We'll be all right. We'll just keep moving forward. I'm committed to this. It'll sort itself out. Problem was, I was missing some big points in terms of I wasn't providing the emotional support. We'd lost our emotional connection. I wasn't as sexually active. I didn't have as strong a libido as my wife, and often she would accuse me of having affairs when I wasn't having affairs. It's just that I was focused on work. I was stressed. I'd gone from being single straight into a family because my wife had a 2-year-old daughter. So I was just coping and I was just doing the best. But in my world, we were going to be together forever and we would get through it. We didn't have the knowledge, we didn't have these foundations to work on. We were just floundering along the way. My wife had a clearer picture, but I was lost. So anyway, on to the next module, which is stages of a relationship.